Hello and welcome to the joint Procon Leicestershire Nottinghamshire webinar. I'm Umesh Desai and I'm the chair of Procon Leicestershire. First, I'd like to wish you all a belated Happy New Year and thank you for joining us for these as we enter our second year of hosting these events. Last year, we had more than 1,000 members and non-members join us for our monthly webinars. We've had lots of ideas for webinars for this year, but we are also looking for more ideas. So if you have any, please get in touch with us. Today, we're going to be looking at how social value is fast becoming an asset for contractors in public procurement after the government passed legislation to encourage it. The increased emphasis on boosting social, economic and ecological value in recent years is not just good about good PR, it's almost firmly embedded in most tender processes. While businesses delivering value beyond the basics of paying workers, rewarding shareholders and delivering goods and services is nothing new, the focus on social value takes this to another level and is focused on social, economic and environmental benefits. Any businesses that embrace the social value is willing to flex and work in different ways to deliver it stands to be favoured by clients, leaving not just buildings and infrastructure as testaments to the work, but a legacy of positive social change. This afternoon, our three speakers, Alison Ramsey from Scape, Zoe Anastasi from Wilmot Dixon, and Carrie Booth from BSB Consulting, will talk to you about why they support social value and how they've embedded it in their respective businesses. As always, we'll be hosting a live Q&A session at the end of the webinar with assistance from Cartwright Communications, where Carrie, Alison and Zoe will answer your questions. If you have a question for any of them, simply type it into the box below and we'll be answering these in a little while. You can also use the upvote function if you see a particular question you'd like to know the answer to. So please make use of this and we'll be able to make sure we answer your questions that you're most interested in. But for now, without further ado, it's time to hand over to our first speaker this afternoon, Alison Ramsey.
I'm Alison Ramsey and I'm the Social Value and Performance Manager for Scape. Scape is committed to leaving a sustainable legacy. Over 10 years ago, 6 local authorities came together to create Scape, to pool their buying power and realise the economies of scale that this brings. It enabled them to deliver the best value to their communities and allowed other public bodies to use the frameworks to do the same in their communities. Social value is built into our frameworks at procurement and performance managed through every call-off. As a public sector body, our aim is to work with our private sector partners to deliver the best value for the communities that we serve. We have a social value policy and an environmental policy, and these are designed to clearly set out our approach, both in our own operations and in the delivery of our framework projects. We've experienced the benefits of working with clients who have a clear policy in these areas, and we definitely advocate having a policy in place to work to. Social value is embedded right at the start because we explicitly evaluate it when our frameworks are procured. Bidders demonstrate their processes and methods of operation include social value delivery. They provide evidence of their past achievement and their readiness to bring innovation and best practice to their projects. And because social value is included in our procurement process, the organisations that become Scape framework partners are those for whom delivering social value is business as usual. We ensure social value is delivered through our framework management process. So we have a suite of performance indicators which our partners are required to meet, many of which are key to social value delivery. We see these measures as meeting our clients' needs and driving improvements in the industry, supporting small and local businesses to thrive and protecting the environment. We also recognise that the social value delivered should be driven by client priorities. So a bespoke social value action plan is developed for every project. We use the national TOMs to capture the social value delivered across all of our projects to ensure we're using a consistent measure. With the recent lockdowns, we've had to find different ways to deliver things like work experience. Virtual work experience programmes have been delivered really successfully, so students still get that insight into the industry with expert advice and conversations. And because it's online, there's no geographical boundaries. As the public body, we want to see public money spent well and delivering the best value possible. We know that construction projects can provide benefits to local communities through training and skills, jobs and business opportunities, and environmental enhancements. We monitor the outcomes of our projects, but what we really want to see is the real positive difference it makes to people's lives and the environment.
Hi, my name is Zoe Anastasi. I'm the Regional Community Manager for Wilmot Dixon Construction. Today we're going to be talking about social value. We're going to talk about why social value, why do we do it, what's the best way to start doing it, and talk to you a bit about our journey and how we got to where we are today. So why social value? Social value has been embedded into our culture for over 150 years. It's in our DNA, it's part of who we are. It breeds a good culture and it helps us to work with like-minded customers and supply chain. So how did we get to where we are today? If you're thinking about starting a social value journey and embedding it into your culture, the first thing you need to do is ask yourself why. Why am I doing it? Am I doing it just to win work or for PR? Or do I want to make it into a culture and part of who we are? Whatever your reason, that's great, and you do that. But for Wilmot Dixon, we do it because it's the right thing to do. We used to think that we knew what our communities wanted, and we would do things to our communities. And what we realised over the last few years was we really need to be closer to our stakeholders, closer to our customers and our communities to really understand what they need rather than thinking we know what they need. But the ultimate goal is to leave the community in a better place than when we started working there and to leave them a legacy. So we don't want to reinvent the wheel. Years ago, we used to come up with all these crazy ideas, and it's great to be creative and think of new ways of doing things. But someone gave me an example recently of the Joe Wicks PE lessons. I myself tried to take part at the beginning of lockdown. It lasted a few weeks, but fell by the wayside, unfortunately. But Joe Wicks, he's a PE teacher, he's the nation's PE teacher, and he is good at what he does. Did it raise his brand awareness? Yes. Did it bring him loads of PR? Yes. But ultimately, it got young people moving, it got them doing exercise, and it was the right thing for him to do because that's his speciality. So working in construction, we really need to bring things back to what we're good at. So identify the skills that you've already got in your business and offer those to the community. That might be trade, it might be IT facilities, it might be HR advice to small companies. But we really started to look at what are we good at and how can we use that to improve the communities that we're working in. So collaboration is really key when it comes to social value, because the more people we collaborate with, the bigger the impact we can have on the communities. So we work really closely with our customers and try and figure out what it is their drivers are, what their ambitions are for the local areas. And we do a lot of research with our contacts with community organisations and really try and dig down into what is it that the community needs. We're also starting to work with our, what used to be competitors, I guess, but we all want the same thing for the communities that we're working in. So by working together, then we can make a much bigger impact. And that's something we're really working towards for the future. So where do you start with social value? I think that's the hardest thing, is getting started. And like with any culture change or any new initiative that you bring into the company, it's got to start from the top down. So you've got to have buy-in from your senior leaders to say, this is what we're going to do and we're going to drive it forward. But more importantly, you've got to capture the data, because there's no point going to do things and then not having anything to show for it and be able to say, here, this is what we've done. So there are loads of free resources out there. So we work closely with the Social Value Portal, and they have great free resources. It's not the only one, there are others out there that are free, but you could even start with an Excel spreadsheet. But the first place to start, my advice would be to look back. So when you find something that works for you in your business, then have a look back at the previous year. What community activities did you do? Did you give cash? Did you engage with a school? Did you do any mentoring? Did you work with a social enterprise or a charity? And put all of that data in and see what comes out, because then you've got a starting point and you know where to go from there. So we developed our own in-house data capture about 7 years ago now, called My Project. And it was initially to capture KPIs on our projects, but that's now evolved and it captures everything from environmental, social value, health and safety. So that's grown massively over the last few years. But it's a great way to capture things, project-specific activities, and be able to report on it. But it's really important to find out what your customer wants. So who are you reporting to and how do they want to receive that data? So your customers, a lot of local authority, they are starting to use national TOMs as a reporting method. So if you've got loads of local authority customers all wanting the same data, then maybe use that as your first port of call. And don't just focus on the numbers. Yeah, it's great to say we gave X amount of pounds to charity, or we gave X amount of hours or apprentice days. But we really want those individual stories as well. There are some people who love the numbers, but some people who love the stories as well, and they shouldn't be lost. So if you've got the story of one apprentice that has worked their way through the business that you've supported, then start to create case studies around those, because storytelling will really capture people when you're going out to PR. So by coming together and committing to deliver social value, you're not only benefiting the local community and giving the customer what they want, but it does benefit your own people. It's a well-known fact that giving and donating your time, or giving to charity, volunteering, whatever it may be, is good for your own personal well-being. And you'll find that in your staff retention and morale. So by doing good, it does have a knock-on effect. It's time for businesses to move away from thinking about social value as community work or pink and fluffy, because it's not. It has a massive impact on people's lives. Will it when you work? Yes, probably. But will it have a massive impact on the people? So communities, your own people, local charities, schools, and the next generation of people who work in our industry. That is so important. All these young people who you're engaging with, they're going to be our next leaders, and our next supply chain, our next customers even. So by working together to attract those people, let them know about the different careers in construction, it is all doing good. But we are definitely stronger together, and if we all pool our resources, then imagine the massive effect it can have on our local communities. Thank you.
Hello everyone, my name is Carrie Booth. I'm the Business Development Manager who works for BSP Consulting. We're an engineering consultancy service, an SME who has been in business for over 20 years. We're predominantly based in the Midlands and currently have 60 employees. Our work is across a range of sectors. We work in the public and private sector, a 50-50 sort of split. So why is social value important to us? Well, to be honest, to win more work. We were completing public sector tenders and getting feedback on our quality score, and we could see room for improvement. So we invested in some bid training, and it was pointed out to us that one area we could improve upon was the recording of our social value activities. So not only could we improve our quality score, but this could also be a valuable route to market for us. We felt we were behind the times and our competitors were going to get ahead of the game. That was our business case. We presented it to our management teams. So the BD team were given the full support to start properly recording our social value activities, gain any accreditations that we could, and put things in place. So we had permission to drive our business forward by investing time and money in social value. So the next step was to think about who we could talk to, who could help us on our journey, and where were we to start. So we were working with contractors Wilmot Dixon on a few projects, and so we thought we'd start by talking to them to find out how they monitor, manage, and implement social value. We were put in touch with Zoe. So Zoe's first tip was to start a social value calculator. We started to go over things that we had done, and these were logged. So the place to start is to gather all the evidence and record it. This will then highlight areas for improvement. It will show you what things give you a higher score, which will educate you on other things that you could do in addition to what you currently do. So the discussions with Wilmot Dixon helped us to understand that we need to align with contractors wherever possible on projects to help deliver our social value. So how do we implement social value? CSR activity is based on the 4 pillars of CSR: environment, workplace, community, and philanthropy. They do overlap a little in some cases, but here's a summary of what we do. So in terms of the environment, we have an environmental policy and a management system. We promote systems to reduce our environmental impact of all company operations, whether that's office, design, or site-based. Our offices are more energy efficient. Grants are available to help with this, such as the N2 and D2 energy efficiency grants for Nottingham and Derby. Employees recycle their office waste with the aim of sending 0 waste directly to landfill. All offices have piped drinking water facilities to reduce the use of plastic water bottles. So each office actively looks to purchase upcycled equipment. For example, we collected 30 desks from another firm that no longer had a use for them. We set environmental objectives each year, such as fitting smart meters and encouraging the reduction of car use. We're having discussions with Nottingham City Council regarding a workplace travel service grant to have an electric car charging point installed. We promote behavioural measures by having posters displayed in the offices, encouraging switching off lights, turning off computers, and reducing our carbon footprint. Our newsletter website host uses 100% renewable energy. We use fair trade, ethical companies for supplies such as tea and coffee, etc. Now in the workplace, we're an equal opportunities employer. We employ apprenticeships and offer work placements. We have a cycle to work scheme and have installed locker storage and shower facilities. We have signed up to a Nottingham cycle scheme called Strands and a Derby cycle scheme called Connected. We promote life balance. We have a flexible working hours policy and offer childcare subsidies. We have a Westfield Health Chamber Primary Health Cash Plan, meaning that every employee can claim for optical, dental, chiropody and therapy treatments, along with discounted memberships to gyms and health clubs, which is useful when they're allowed to be open. We offer leadership and skills training, learning and development, and we engage with our staff at annual appraisals and have a years of service bonus offer, along with a company pension scheme for all employees. Each team has an annual subsidised team building day, a barbecue and a Christmas do, again when we're allowed. We operate a sustainable supply chain using local businesses, providing a reduction in CO2. And in terms of the community, we actively interact with community groups and support educational initiatives. We engage with the local universities and colleges to help with lecturing, mentoring and apprenticeships. We've raised money for Plumtree Cricket Club to provide the best facilities for disabled cricketers and encourage more young players. We're an active contributor to Entrust STEM, based in Nottinghamshire. We carried out a sustainable communities activity that had 30 Year 9 students planning, designing and marketing a housing development. And in terms of philanthropy, we interact with the local community by doing events to raise money. We've recently collected for a local food bank. We've helped Lincolnshire District Scouts design and create a climbing frame. The local children can now access safe, educational and fun activities, helping to grow the individuals and provide skills for life. So Zoe put us in touch with Nottingham College, and we interviewed 10 members of staff at different levels of their career to help the students understand how to pursue a career in construction. Zoe has also put us in touch with Leicestershire Cares and Dancop. Our aim is to start to engage with more groups throughout the East Midlands region to form our 2021 social value plan. So how do we monitor and record social value? This is on a social value calculator. We started to go over things that we'd done. These were logged on the calculator. This showed us that we'd provided 1.9 million social value in 2019. We have a dedicated social value webpage and issue a quarterly newsletter. We communicate through our social media accounts, Twitter and LinkedIn, which include staff, customer and community support. The next step was to obtain some sort of accreditation to evidence what we do. This will help us keep us on our toes when it comes up for renewal, because commitment needs to be ongoing. So we've received a gold CSR accreditation, the highest level awarded, which delivers the standard for corporate social responsibility. And this reflects our dedication and commitment to social and environmental concerns within our business operations and in interactions with stakeholders, including staff, clients and associates. So we're due to be audited this year for the ISO 14001 Environmental Management Accreditation. Hopefully we'll be successful in gaining this, something we've been meaning to obtain for some time. So what are the business benefits to all this? Framework tender wins are up. Is this just down to our social value activities? No, but it will certainly form a part of it. Has our existing contractor design teams' relationships been strengthened due to our social value push? We would like to think so. It will certainly do no harm engaging with one another in this way, coming together to do a good thing. Our environmental achievements, both site-based and in the office, help us to do our bit to tackle climate change. And looking after the environment will bring down business overheads. Having happy, healthy, motivated staff will benefit our business. So being an equal opportunities employer who provides staff benefits will help us to also recruit and retain valuable employees. So by providing work placements, internships and apprenticeships to help attract new talent into the industry, will help to close the skills gap. We currently have an advert on our website for a civil engineering graduate to join our Nottingham office team. This role will provide the suitable candidate with practical hands-on experience, working alongside engineers who can share their knowledge and expertise. So just to conclude, we come together as a team to achieve our social value goals. Everyone will have something different to give, whether that is to monitor and manage, to push and promote activities, or by being a business leader, supporting employees to do more. Time is money and everyone has a job to do, as well as trying to improve their social value input. Making it a team effort means you can achieve more. It is imperative that the load is shared. It then becomes enjoyable and achievable. We're learning what to spend time doing, as some activities are worth more social value than others. It will no doubt benefit your business in more ways than you might have originally thought. The more you do, the more you will see the benefit it has in the local community. Will this make you feel better about yourself? Of course it will. Embrace social value. The more you do, the more you will want to do. It will open your eyes to all sorts of things. Thank you.
Some really, really interesting insights from all of our speakers there. So massive thanks to Alison, Zoe and Carrie for those presentations. And of course, they are now here with us to have a live Q&A. So if you would like to ask them any questions, please do type them into the Q&A box, which is at the bottom of your screen, and then we'll be able to see those and put them to our three panellists. Thank you so much for joining us, all of you, and a belated, as Umesh said, Happy New Year, even though I can't believe we're quite at the end of January, but that's happened. So let's get going with a few questions. Alison, we're going to come to you first for this one. For people who maybe want to start social value within their company or are interested in it and don't really know where to start, how do you get started with it? What do you need to have in place?
Well, I think, as Zoe pointed out, the best thing to do is to look back over what you've already done. And I think personally, if you download the Social Value TOMs, and there are lots of other calculators out there, but the TOMs are freely available from the Social Value Portal website. So you can download that, and it's a hugely long list of measures. But what you can use that for is just to look through those measures and see what you already do, because there'll be many things on there that you'll look at and think, well, we do that. I didn't even realise that was social value effectively, and we could do more of that. So I think the first thing is to recognise what you already do, and using that template is a great thing to do to recognise what you already do, and then also look through what things you could do. And it may just make a small change. And as Carrie pointed out, there's such a broad range of things that you can do. And they don't have to be expensive. They don't have to be huge things. They can be very small incremental things. But certainly the first thing is to identify what you already do. And then I think after that, once you kind of move on to the next step, as I mentioned, having a social value policy is really key, because it means that everybody then knows exactly what you're working towards. So it's great for your own employees because it sets out a clear definition of your aims and objectives. So everybody is clear on what it is that you're aiming to do. But it also helps those people that want to work with you, because then they know what your objectives are and they know how to help you meet them.
Absolutely, makes it clearer for everyone involved, doesn't it? Carrie, now next one will come to you. I guess this probably depends on the project itself or how much time you have to put into it, but how much time do you need to give to social value, would you say?
Well, I would say if you're starting from scratch, it's going to take time to sort of gather all of the evidence, and the social value calculator will guide you through this. So gaining accreditations and putting the systems in place, such as the CSR and the ISO 14001, that will take some time. But after the initial outlay of time, the whole process becomes a lot more manageable. We're still quite early on in the process, unlike Wilmot Dixon, Zoe there. So I think you need to think in stages. So first of all, gather the existing evidence, then gain the accreditation and know what your plan is, then sort of raise awareness internally and get people on board to help engage with the system and the plan. That's about where we're at the moment. And then work together to continue improving the baseline and come together as a team to put things in place. Some achievable goals for the future, I'd say. Of course, yes. Achievable goals are always the aim. We like to aim for the sky, don't we? But starting achievable is a really important baseline to start with. Now, Zoe, it's only taken 3 questions to get to COVID. I'm very sorry. But you distilled down Wilmot Dixon's ethos on social value really well. Has what's happened over the past kind of year or so with the coronavirus pandemic made you change your approach at all, or has it just been a case of kind of adapting in the short term?
Absolutely, it has. And I think, you know, it's really easy for people to say, oh, coronavirus, we can't do anything, and just use that as an excuse. But we acted super quick. We developed a lot of our existing activities, and we looked at them and said, okay, which ones can we make virtual? And again, that communicating with our schools and our communities, saying, what do you need? And we knew straight off the bat, they needed content. They wanted someone to be able to deliver things in a virtual environment. So we developed virtual site tours, and we haven't got thousands of pounds to spend on a production crew. It's literally us with an iPhone walking around our sites, but it's effective. And what we found that the students are really engaging with is we're just all people, and we're just being ourselves, and sometimes things go wrong, and it's not a big professional corporate thing, it's just us people. And we've been able to do mock interviews with students. We're working with the schools to deliver them what they need. Has it impacted it? Yeah, massively. By now we would have been doing loads of other things. But again, communicate with your customers, because our customers know we're probably not going to hit our social value targets for numbers, but by communicating and working closely with our customers and delivering the communities what they need, the customers are still happy. And we're saying, look, we're still doing whatever we can, food banks, giving people materials for things, doing online communication and virtual work experience. So yeah, we might not hit the numbers, but we're still trying to make an impact.
I think what you said about kind of showing the human side, I suppose, as it were, like when things go wrong, for example, I feel like the coronavirus pandemic has been a kind of great leveler in that extent, because we were literally all taken back to the beginning when we were all thrown into home working full time and getting used to this digital world. So it's really interesting how different companies have adapted to that. Now, Alison, what do you think? Because in the past kind of few years, there's definitely been more of a kind of insurgence in social value, and it's been brought to the front a bit more than it maybe was beforehand. What do you think has been the catalyst for that and becoming more important over the past few years?
Well, the Social Value Act certainly helped in that regard. I think it's almost just giving it a title, giving it a name, making it a thing. It's something probably that all organisations do in some shape or form. Even from when you were at school, there was charity bike rides and, sponsored this, that and the other. So it's something that we always do, but it never had this title social value attached to it before. So I think that's really helped. And then obviously the government have gone further to change that from consider social value to explicitly evaluate social value. And I think as soon as it started to be used in tenders and used to be perhaps the deciding factor as to whether somebody won something or not, it meant that it became serious all of a sudden, and it wasn't just that pink fluffy thing that's done to keep people happy. It was actually, this is a serious commercial decision that we need to take here to concentrate on this. And social value doesn't just happen. It has to be planned, and it needs resources, and it does need considering at the early stages of a project. There's no point thinking about it afterwards and saying, oh, what we should have done. It needs to be planned in right from the start. And I think once somebody within an organisation gets their head around that it's not just something that will happen as a consequence of something else. It does need to be planned and considered, and a proper plan drawn up right from the start, and resources put into that. And then you'll see the benefits of it. And if it does lead to, additional work, and it does lead to something that you can evidence that you've done to win future work, then that's great as well.
I can see lots of emphatic nodding from Zoe and Carrie. Do either of you want to add anything else onto that answer?
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right, Alison. And I think it's really important for the smaller companies to put their hand up and say, can you help us? For the SMEs, I had a call this morning with one of our supply chain partners. They're an SME, they've got a small office in Leicester, and they're like, we can't resource it really. And I said, well, let's do something together. We can do it together. And we do have more resources, but again, Alison, the planning is so important. Creating those networks, like Carrie was saying, with some of the Leicester partners and Nottingham partners that we've introduced her to, you can build on those relationships. And then next time you get a project in that area, you give them a ring and say, we're working in the area again. How can we support you? And creating those long-term relationships rather than dropping in, doing something, then leaving again. Creating those long-term relationships is really important.
Making sure it's got continuity, I suppose, isn't it? Now, Carrie, it was really interesting to hear that investing in social value was a business decision and seemingly a successful one, we like to say. So what's the feedback been like from clients for you?
Yeah, I think it's been quite positive. I mean, as I said it in the speech, we feel we're quite early on in this process, and it's been a bit of a minefield for us to realise everything that we've had to do to get to this point. I mean, a lot of it we were doing already, don't get me wrong, that we were doing it. It was just gathering everything where it needed to be and then sort of getting that out there and telling people about it. And now I think the biggest challenge is for me to be able to get the information from our engineers who work here so that we can then sort of get that through into the bid so that our customer base can understand it a bit more.
Absolutely. Now, Zoe, as a bit of a contrast, obviously for Carrie, social value is something quite new to the business, whereas you mentioned that it's been part of the Wilmot Dixon ethos for quite a long time now. So you've probably seen it kind of evolve and change. What would you say are the main changes and evolutions that it's gone through while you've been at Wilmot Dixon?
Probably the biggest change has been the pressure from frameworks and from local authority customers. We've always taken it seriously, don't get me wrong. We've had community managers in our business for a long time, but for it to be a culture, it was that pressure to say, hang on, we can't just have one lady who goes around the sites collecting KPIs and saying, should we do a donation for a food bank? We thought, hang on, this needs to be done properly and planned. As much as we need a construction manager on site, we need a community manager to be planning that. And it was really driven from the customers and the supply chain, the customers in the framework, as to why it's changed very quickly in a short, I'm sure Alison will agree, in a short space of time, really, it's been taken a lot more seriously, I think. But yeah, it's buy-in from everybody as well.
Absolutely. Alison, would you like to add anything in how you change at Scape?
Yeah, no, I agree with Zoe there. And I also think that in recent years as well, the climate emergency has pushed up the environmental side of social value. I think traditionally we always thought social value equals apprenticeships. And sometimes it didn't go any further than that, really. But I think now the environmental side of things, sustainability, biodiversity, there's a much more focus on that now and how we can improve those areas as well.
And you talked about, Alison, the importance of, obviously we've talked about the calculator quite a lot, but you also mentioned having policies in place when it comes to social value. So what needs to go into this for people who are maybe thinking about getting started themselves?
I think that the key point of having a social value policy, particularly if you look at it from a local authority point of view, you may have somebody who's really passionate, who's delivering a project, which is great. But if they're a lone voice, nothing's ever going to get done. That very small amounts will get done. What you really need is direction right from the top. So if you have a social value policy, that's gone through various committees, it's gone to your elected members, and they have rubber stamped it, and they've said, this is what we support, this is what we as an organisation want to deliver. And then that's cascaded down through the procurement officers and the project officers. And everyone knows then that those are the aims that they're driving towards. So whatever they procure, whatever they deliver, they know what targets they're working towards. So I think that's the key benefit of it, is that you all know what it is you're aiming for. So rather than a procurement officer saying, well, I have to have the cheapest, what they'll say is, I need to meet our social value targets, which means I need to make sure that there are opportunities for local businesses. I need to make sure that I'm tying in with our adult education office to make sure that we're giving opportunities for local people, that sort of thing. So it's just really to make sure that there's a whole culture running through from top to bottom, and everyone is working towards the same targets.
Yes, which is something that Zoe touched on, isn't it, in your speech, about it has to be from the top down, so all the way through the business. We've got about 10 minutes or so left with these three, so if you do have any questions, please make sure they're popping them into the Q&A box, please, as opposed to the chat function, so that we can go through them correctly. But next up, we've got a question for you, Carrie. Do you think that social value still has a perception problem, that people see it as, pink and fluffy, as Zoe and Alison have already said, or is that perception getting a bit dated now?
I think in our firm, people are coming round, and working for engineers, they see things as facts and figures, and it's taken them time to realise that this is important. You know, there's more than just designing a building involved. We need to do more to sort of keep the business going. And we had an internal webinar actually yesterday, and that really helped everyone to sort of open their eyes a bit more. I mean, obviously they're aware of it, but to realise actually how important it is and how serious it is, that we need to be going down this route. And at the end of the seminar, that wasn't run by myself, it was an external person, they just kind of, the comments we were having, that people felt uplifted from it, and they felt there's more that they can do, and especially from sort of the design point of view, they're just wondering, where do we start, how do we go about this? And now the ideas are flowing, and the conversations have started to happen, and so it's just opening doors to us by just talking about it, really.
And I quite like the term pink and fluffy, even though it does do a lot more than that, because we've talked about it today, just how much success in business and that kind of thing it can bring to businesses. But I quite like that term, so I'm okay if it sticks around. Now, Zoe, just going back to that top-down approach that Alison was mentioning, and making sure that it goes all the way through the company and that everyone's on board. For someone who maybe is struggling to get the kind of higher ups in the business on board, or wanting to prove that social value is worth the effort and what you put into it, what would you maybe say to someone like that?
I think that we need to look at their why. Why do they want to embed it in the company? And it'd be about looking at the benefits. I would be very surprised if anyone at the top would say, no, we don't want to do it because it wins work, and that's the fact of it. And if they just want to do it for that reason, great, because that person that's in the middle there going, yes, at least I've got it embedded. So the top, if they want to think that it's just to win work, great. But trying to get that hook and find out what means something to you, and that would be a really great starting point. Is if you have one person in your business super passionate about a certain group of people, it might be, you know, graduates, it might be care leavers or ex-military, then go down that path, and or it might be planting trees, anything. And because once you've got that passion, it is infectious, and you can pass that through the business.
Excellent. And I think what's very clear from today's webinar is how passionate you three are about social value, and that passion is quite infectious, isn't it, I suppose, when it comes to selling something to someone and getting someone on board. Having that passion and having that niche, I suppose, as well, really does help. Now, I've got one final question that I'm going to ask to all of you, and putting you a little bit on the spot, but in a nice way, I like to think. So I'd like you to give us an example of, you've all worked on loads of different strategies and social value projects, I'm sure, in your time. So give us an example of one that was particularly successful for you personally or for the business, and why you think it maybe performed so well. Alison, we'll come to you first.
Well, obviously, at Scape, we don't deliver the projects directly. They're delivered through by our partners. I think one example that I heard of that was particularly nice to hear of was a chap who was a site manager who was looking after the latest apprentice, who was a bricklaying apprentice. And the bricklaying apprentice, this young lad, was attending the same college that the now site manager used to attend. So it just kind of showed that you know, it gave him such a great mentorship to say, I know exactly what you've gone through because I went through that, and I went to the same college as you, and I attended site and started right at the bottom, and now I'm a project manager. And I think to be able to give some young person that sort of aspiration and demonstrate so clearly that, you know, that they can start on the trades and then work their way up through the business, and that opportunity is open to them. I think that was a real good example.
Oh, absolutely, I'd agree with that. Carrie, let's come to you next.
Okay, so something that I personally have been involved with is the thing that Zoe set up for us. So the community engagement task of talking to the Nottingham College. And so how am I trying to say this? So we interviewed the engineers, and we then sent that to Nottingham College. And I quite enjoyed doing the interviews. And at first, my colleague Jeff was saying, people won't be interested, they won't have time, they won't want to do it. And I said, no, let's ask them. Let's see if we can get them involved. It'll just take them 5 minutes to tell their story. And I sent a message around the firm, and we had a lot of interest. Like, people were keen to try and help students and tell their story. And that was really nice. I enjoyed personally being involved with that one.
Sometimes it's amazing, isn't it, to go into something with not necessarily much expectation and then it all to work out perfectly and even better than you ever imagined. So yeah, definitely a good example. And Zoe, finally, your example for us.
This is a really hard one because we do amazing things every single day in our business, but one for me personally that sticks out in my mind is we tried something a bit different when we were building the Nottingham Science Park, and we got a group of students from trade students from Nottingham College, and we set them up almost a mini site on our site, and under supervision they used materials from site, like waste materials, to create outdoor furniture and play equipment for a local primary school. And seeing these, you know, the trainee carpentry students, Brick Lane students, all kinds of things, and they had to be inventive and they worked together, and then we delivered all this furniture to the primary school, and the looks on their little faces was just priceless. But there was a whole chain of people that got something out of that event. So and really all we did was facilitate the space and materials and bits and bobs like that. So, but yeah, everyone got masses out of it and it was really good fun.
Some lovely examples there of how social value can really make the world of difference even in small ways. So perfect. Thank you so much, all of you. Massive thanks to Carrie, Alison and Zoe for answering all of those questions. I'm going to hand over now to Umesh, who is going to bring today's webinar to a close.
Thanks, Danielle. That brings us to the end of today's webinar. And thank you all to all three of our fantastic speakers today, Zoe, Carrie and Alison, and everyone involved in organising this webinar. And of course, thank you all for watching as well. If you're not a member of Procon and wish to join, please do get in touch. Our contact information is easily found on both the Leicestershire and Nottinghamshire websites and on the confirmation emails that would have been sent out to you for this webinar. Our next webinar will be taking place in late February. Keep an eye out on your inboxes for information about how you can save yourself a place, as we'll be sending out details very soon. But for now, have a lovely afternoon and we'll see you next time. Thank you. Bye.